Just inject them rapidly.
The route of administration is IP. I've injected number 1.
Why IP? Go ahead with the injections. Now, most of the time, people will get poisoned, either intentionally or more frequently, accidentally, with diclovers. It will be oral route. The IP route, like you well know, is not so commonly used in therapeutics, but in the lab, it's very commonly used because it ensures very rapid absorption. You may be wondering how he's able to pick 1, 2, 3. He has marked them with specific marks on their tails. So from his notebook or his administration sheet, he can tell which rat is to receive which volume because their weights are different, as he told you. Of course, in clinical practice, you have to be careful when you give medicines to your patients. You cannot afford to make a mistake and administer the wrong drug or the right drug to the wrong person. Please write down the time now that group 1 animals have been injected or poisoned. Look, this rat is already showing signs of respiratory distress. He's finding difficulty in breathing and not knowing what to do. He's using the paws as if to scratch the nose area or the mouth area. Please administer to the... This group will receive normal saline. Is the group we are not poisoning at all. And if you watch the technologist, he's using a completely new syringe. You have to use a different syringe for normal saline, yet another one for the organophosphate, and yet a different one for the antidote. You cannot keep using the same syringe across board. Look at the toxicity. Can you see? You can see tremors. Tremors and convulsions go together. This mouse is showing the typical signs of organophosphate poisoning. You can see he's stretching his leg, he's convulsing, he's experiencing tremors, he's having difficulty in breathing. You can see the abdominal movements. And I'm almost certain that this is going to die. This is the female cage. You can administer these ones without talking to them. You can see the hind limbs are stretched behind. You can see this is as a result of paralysis of skeletal muscles. Now, why is this one reacting so badly and the others are still alert? This one is even exploring, though this one is beginning to feel the effect of the poison. It's as a result of biological variation. Even if you give the same dose to a group of persons, they will all respond in different ways and at different times. This one, the others are going to show the signs of toxicity, but it may take a while. So what I expect you to do is to note the time that you observe all this toxicity. In fact, this one is dead already. Organophosphate poisoning can result in death in a short time. And because as a teacher, every moment is a teaching moment. It's not a good way to die. Please, we are all going to die. There is no need to take diclovers because it's readily available. And if you use diclovers for storage purpose or any other pesticidal use, make sure that you wash your hands and keep it out of reach of unauthorized or untrained persons. Rat number 1 has died. It exhibited signs of toxicity within 3 minutes and died within 5 minutes. Now look at this rat here at the corner. It's also exhibiting signs of toxicity. Similarly, this one, although not as much. Again, this one is still exploring. Biological variation, like I explained to you. The rats in group 2, they are male rats that receive normal saline. Normal saline is just like water. It's physiological with our body fluids. So these rats, we don't expect them to show any signs of toxicity. These are the normal rats. When you're looking at all the other cages, keep an eye on this one to compare them with the normal. Have you poisoned this? No. Okay. Now this is group 3. Group 3 is central for the whole experiment. The rats here are going to receive the poison and they are not going to receive treatment. Please go ahead and rapidly poison these rats. When he finishes, I will tell you he has poisoned rats in group 2, and then you must note the time. Remember, keep one eye on group 2. Group 2 are not poisoned at all. It's very easy to distinguish between male and female. For the male, you can see the scrotal sac at the bottom. Let me pick one of them up. If you pick it up, it's even less obvious. This is a male rat, for example. The female are also easy to identify. You will see the breast line. Sometimes it's not so obvious, but there is a lack of, I can see. By the time you practice with them a little bit, you can see, your eyes become trained. And the scrotal sac, which contains the scrotum, will be missing, of course, from the female. These animals were not poisoned. These ones are being poisoned. Watch this rat. It's also beginning to exhibit signs of toxicity. Death from organophosphate can be painful. Those who have survived have always expressed regret. They didn't know that all those abdominal constrictions were going to be so hurtful. Please write down the time that animals in group 3 have been poisoned. We expect to see the worst degree of toxicity in this cage because these animals will not receive treatment at all. Watch this rat. When you see them seemingly scratching their nose or mouth area with their front paws, it's because they are having difficulty in breathing. You can see tremors. You can see tremors. In fact, this particular rat is even shaking the cage. The tremors are central effects and eventually lead to convulsions. You can see these two exhibiting tremors. You can see that the skeletal muscles are getting paralyzed. See how the hand limbs are being stretched out and sluggish. It can no longer move or stand on its feet. Watch this one. You can see the paralysis of the skeletal muscle has resulted in the inability of the rat to move in the normal way. You can see tremors, you can see convulsions, you can see difficulty in breathing. Eventually, these two rats are likely to die. Now, in this group, you have male rats too. He's going to poison them and immediately follow up with atropine. It's similar to what he has done before. So please, Mr. Mohammed, just go ahead and do your thing. I want you to pay attention to this cage. See the typical signs. Can you see the tail curved and twitching? Because paralysis of skeletal muscles, initially you have spastic paralysis, you have twitching, then eventually you have flaccid paralysis. These two definitely are going to die. Now, as you watch these ones, keep your eye on this cage number 2 that did not receive any poison. And on cage number 1 that was poisoned but are female rats. And see whether there is a difference between the female cage and the male cage. And what Mr. Mohammed, the technologist, is doing now is to poison the rats in group 4, but he will follow up with immediate treatment. As nurses and other healthcare professionals, we want you to appreciate the fact that early intervention makes a world of a difference. It can make the difference between life or death. And one of your roles as a healthcare professional is education. Make sure you tell people, when you experience poison, don't stay at home. Come straight to the health center. Come straight to the clinic where an antidote can be given. And putting the animals on their side so that you better appreciate their inability to move or to function normally. Compared to this group, all of them are agile and moving. People have asked, is it right? Is it ethical? Is it moral to treat an innocent rat with poison like we have done now? See the suffering they have endured, and they are likely to die. And this is something that scientists take very seriously to heart. I will come back to the issue of the ethics of using animals in experiment. Now, in this cage, you are still giving the poison.
Immediately after the poison, I will give the antidote.
Okay, but you are still giving the poison.
Yes.
Now, look at this. In this cage, you have male rats. They are being poisoned. No antidote has been given. And yet, one of the rats has already succumbed.
I give the antidote now.
Oh, you've given the antidote?
Yes.
Okay. I apologize. I was busy talking about animal rights. The antidote has been given. Immediately he gives the poison, he gives the antidote. It's a bit artificial because in real life, the antidote doesn't come so quickly. But we are trying to pass on a message to you. The interesting thing is, yet, although this rat received a poison, received an antidote, immediately he still died. You must not forget the effect or the role of biological variation. We are all different. If you gather 100 of you into a room now and give you the same dose of, say, a sedative hypnotic, a sleeping medicine, some people will sleep for 4 hours. Some will sleep for 10 hours. Some will not sleep at all. But what we are trying to convey to you is the average result that you obtain. So the fact that you have early treatment is no guarantee that death will not occur. In fact, you can see this rat exhibiting the same signs of poisoning that we have seen before. So poisoning will occur. And because the onset means the time interval between the poison and when you begin to see the manifestation of toxicity. Because the onset is very short for organophosphate poisoning, even if you give an antidote, you can still get the maximum effect. Hello? It is very important. Part of your job is to educate people, educate farmers, educate all those who use diclovers, that death can occur very quickly. And they must be careful They must store it properly, away from everybody. They cannot put it in a bottle of Sprite, for example, because somebody will drink a gourd before they know it is not Sprite. They have to put it in the correct bottle and keep it out of reach and out of sight. It's no longer just out of reach, because today's children are very inquisitive. If they see it, they will climb. They will put table and chair and climb to reach it. I saw, I hope you can see, that the one that received no treatment at all and the one that received treatment, that is atropine, immediately after the poisoning suffered toxicity. But the one that received treatment is suffering less toxicity. You can see this animal is quite agile than this one. Although two are dead here, and these two are dead here. So, how can we say that this is, the outcome here is better than this? There are different ways. Death or mortality is one of the final outcome. But there are other ways we can measure the impact of the poison. For example, the onset. How quickly did the toxicity begin to manifest? In less severe cases, it should take a longer time to manifest. Then what about the severity of the poisoning itself? The symptoms. How severe? Were they mild? Were they average, or they were very severe? In organophosphate poisoning, because the onset is so short, that is the time interval between the administration of the poison and the toxicity or death, you can get as much toxicity in this cage as in the cage that received no treatment. Hello? I hope I'm communicating to somebody. Now, this is the last cage. You poisoned them. He's going to poison them now. Then he's going to wait 20 to 30 minutes before giving the antidote. We want everybody in the world to know that the time interval between an incident of poisoning and initiation of treatment makes a big difference. But we want to convince you first, being the healthcare professional, so that when you pass on the message, you can pass it on with conviction. And more importantly, you can practice it. You can practice it yourself. Early intervention is very important. Look at normal rats that receive no treatment. They receive no poison and no treatment. In this female cage that was poisoned, one rat has died, but others are showing various degrees of poisoning. In this male cage that was poisoned, 2 rats have died. The other 2 are showing, look at this one, look at tremors here. Look at this abdomen. You can see respiratory depression, respiratory distress there. And then this is the cage that received early treatment. Mr. Mohammed, please, can you poison this, please? At the end, we come back to the ethics of using animals in research and of poisoning them just because we can. Please take note of the time between the poisoning and the toxicity, and the magnitude of the toxicity. Now, atropine, I've said this before. I want you to understand the underlying principle behind the therapeutic effect of atropine against organophosphate poisoning. Before you can understand how any antidote works, you have to understand how the poison takes place in the first instance. Now, think about it this way. Organophosphate poisoning is as a result of accumulation of acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is accumulating because the enzyme acetylcholinesterase has been inactivated. The enzyme acetylcholinesterase is inactivated because the organophosphates are anticholinesterases. They work against cholinesterase.